I mentioned to you on Monday, I believe, that this past Saturday I went to a birthday party for one of the members of my church and organization, Aussie. And Ozzy, she turned 80 years old. She's now 80 years old, and she's in good health, sound mind, lots of energy. She's been a member of the organization slash church for the last 20-something years, a faithful member in that she's always supported in whatever we needed. I counseled with her family over the years, and it's just been a really good relationship. At this birthday party, they showed a video, a film of her, her background, her history over the years, and it was remarkable in that and I knew some of the things about her, but a lot of the things, or some things I did not know. And she grew up in Louisiana, Arkansas, somewhere down in there, in the country, at a time when we had there were the Jim Crow laws and things like that. She grew up what would be considered as being poor nowadays, but growing up in those days, you did not consider yourself as being poor. When I was growing up in Alabama, it never, ever occurred to me, not one time, that I was poor. And the reason for it, because in those days, you have family. You have parents and grandparents and cousins and uncles and people around, and everybody just kind of doing their thing, being there, helping, and whatever it would take. We were just living, growing up and being independent. And Isaac grew up in that way. She had, I think, about 10 siblings, I believe. And somewhere in there, a lot of them, brothers and sisters. And they grew up in a tin roof house, a little like a plantation house, like what I grew up in. So they showed this on the film, how she grew up in this little house, and her father and mother taught them to work, and, just how things were. And they all had a sense of determination about them, because in those days, blacks grew up that way. They were taught that way. It was the mentality. When we were growing up, we were not going to college wasn't a primary thing, even though it was encouraged in some ways, because, a lot of kids grew up and they went to black universities around the country. Ozzy grew up, and she at some point moved to L.A., at which time she went to a junior college for a minute, but she dropped out. She got married, she had some kids, but yet she still had this drive to just naturally do what grown-ups do, take care of yourself. Eventually, she bought a home, because in those days, again, we were taught to buy land. And so she bought a home, and then she bought another piece of property, bought apartment buildings, and just, bought land. And you naturally are taught that. When I was growing up, and I mentioned this before, is that we were taught when you turn 18, you're out of here, go off, get a job, buy some land, get married, raise a family. And all this should be done, you should start working on the family thing, buy your home around 25. At that time, that's what we were told. And I got up and went out and bought a house at 25 because it was just so ingrained in my system. I didn't know that you couldn't buy one at 25. So I went out and did it. And Ozzy did the same thing. And I didn't know her growing up. I just met her once I started Bond. And then she started and founded a preschool, bought some land, started this preschool, and has been running that for almost, I think she said 30 years. And even some of the adults were there at her party who had gone through her preschool, and their children have gone through their children. She still has the preschool, even though she's 80 years old. She has a lot of energy, so she's still running the school, even after people have told her, oh, you should sell it, you should sell it. But, it's keep her energized and going forward. She's bought land down in Georgia and other places. And I tell you this story because there is this notion now that you have to go to college. I mean, that's for the most part, exceptions to the rule, of course, but for the most part, kids are taught, and this includes black kids and white kids and other kids, that you finish high school, you go to college, you get into the best school, blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned that we have a BOND Academy for Entrepreneurs where we are teaching young boys from the age of 15 and up, all races, how to start businesses because they have a lot of, inside of them, they have this desire to have different forms of businesses, different types. But because they didn't have parents to be an example for them, they don't know how to get them going. So we're helping them by bringing in speakers and, businessmen and women who have succeeded. And just every aspect, we show them. We have a bond credit union where we loan them the money as needed and they pay back with interest. And I'm seeing a natural talent come out of these young men. It is naturally there. And now that they have focused in on it, they're learning so much and they're so excited. They can't believe it. They didn't know, it was in them like this. But when we were growing up, we knew. We didn't know anything else because college wasn't the primary thing. Trade school was pushed more so than college. But just simply being taught to work hard at day one. I say work hard, but to work and to invest. Booker T. Washington taught that at Tuskegee Institute. Buy land. Every man should own some land. Get yourself a little piece of land. If you don't own land, you shouldn't be able to vote. You shouldn't be allowed to. But so we have this entrepreneur program, and we're teaching these young men how to, start and run a business. The mindset, we're creating that mindset or opening it up. The mindset is already there, but we're showing them how to open it up. Aussie is such a great, just impression, because she has encouraged other young women to do the same thing. Over the years, I ran into it. I know many young people who have gone to college, and they are now in debt. I mean, some like $70,000, the highest I've heard, in debt. So once they get out of school, and if they find a job, they spend a lifetime paying that money back in debt, paying that debt back. And sometimes they don't get jobs right away, and then sometimes they get the job, but the jobs don't pay as much as they need. And so I'm thinking it's a horrible mistake to be encouraging your kids to just go to college rather than being an example of them getting a good trade or you teaching them a trade while growing up, because it's easier and less costly that way than it is to just give your money to a university. Just imagine being in debt $70,000 once you graduate from a college, right? That kind of money could have gone into your own business. Those same payments could have been invested into your own business. If you're going to spend $70,000 up to $100,000 getting a so-called college education, why not take that money and just build your own business? And then these people are coming out of these universities and they are as dumb as a doorknob, no character, no love, no sense of direction, and yet they are being encouraged to go to college. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Rather than teaching your children to be independent by you being independent. Independent means you can have a job working for someone else, but you're using your money wisely. You are investing your money. You are, by example, showing your children how to save. And, and some people, I guess you have to go to school to be a teacher. But go to school and be a teacher, but come back and invest and have a life. I would not recommend you keep encouraging your children to spend all this money in these universities And you see how brain dead they're coming back. They're returning home brain dead. You don't recognize your own children. Ozzy, 80 years old, and now she's, financially well off. She's well set. Doesn't have to worry about anything. It's a waste of time to go to college, folks. Put your money into those payments can go into your own business. So, what do you think about that idea of paying $70,000 to $100,000 in college fees, or investing that in your own adventure, your own life?
I think that's a nice idea.
Nice. You went to college. Were you encouraged to invest, buy, and be, start your own business, do your own thing?
I did get sent to this investment seminar thing.
Seminar.
With my brother. My dad sent us there. But I didn't really run with it. I didn't really comprehend it that much.
When you were growing up, did you see your parents doing that, being like independent investors and having their own business and things like that?
I saw my dad working a lot, like he would, because he was writing textbooks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I saw him working a lot. I knew that he did a little bit of investment type stuff, and I knew that he started to buy. He bought like a second house or something like that.
Right.
As I got older, like in college, high school, college, but I didn't really catch on with me.
Did it catch on with your brothers and sisters?
My oldest brother got married and bought a house. And then my middle brother, my older brother, he got into investment a little bit on the mutual funds and stocks and stuff like that.
Now that I'm thinking about this, I noticed that my grandparents had, like my mother, for example, she has or had about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe 6 or 7 sisters and about 8 or 9 brothers.
Yeah.
And now that I look back and reflect on this, when they left home, all of them bought land, all of them bought a house.
Cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
All of them did. And from what I know, and they all had truckloads of children, because in those days, normal people had children. Mm-hmm. They didn't have one child or 2. Or they didn't abort them once they got pregnant. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if not all, most of their children bought homes. And some went on to invest in other things, of course, because that was the mindset. You didn't, your mind, you grew up not realizing anything else.
Yeah.
But to take care of yourself in that way. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
But now their children are all going to college and that kind of stuff. So even though they're doing very well, they're still going to college. And you've seen these young men that we're working with in the BOND Academy. Mm-hmm. And you see how bright they light up once they realize they can do it?
Yeah.
And it's simple and not what they, it's not complicated at all.
Yeah.
That's amazing to see that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Yeah. I'm more excited about it. He is, folks. He's still young. But and Ozzy, Ozzy.
Yep.
And you see all her energy, and
right.
She wear her big church hats, and she's all dressed up. And
yeah.
She was dancing at the party.
I can imagine.
They had a DJ at this party that played old music when we were going to the honky tonk down in Alabama. And I guess they must have played it because that's the kind of music she grew. It was so good. The music was.
Yeah.
And because it reminded me of growing up as a kid. It was really nice. But you can do it, folks. You can really do your own thing. I think it's a mistake to be teaching children just to go to college. And then the black folks, when I was growing up, at one time they were not trying to follow the white man. meaning that, oh, the white people getting a college degree, so we got to do it too, right? But now that the blacks hate the whites, they are trying to imitate them, compete with them. And if you're going to send your little white child to school, I am too. And then their kids come out as dumb as a doorknob with no jobs. Because when they send their kids off to school, all they do is protest. It's not like they're hustling to get a good education so they come out smart people.
Yeah.
They protest all day.
Schools, you learn strange ideas at schools nowadays. Not just at college anymore. You're learning it in high school and elementary school now.
Yeah, nowadays. It's so crazy. Parents, you better look out for your kids in a better way. God's going to get you. Yep. Indoctrination, that's the word.
Indoctrination.
They are not teaching them to be individual. And even though they're wasting their time protesting and hating the white folks and living in separate dorms, and they want to sit on the other side of the lunchroom, not with the white folks, they come out of school, now they're in debt.
Yeah.
And then they blame that on the white man.
And then they vote for Bernie Sanders.
The white man overcharged us because we were black. How crazy is this? But I would encourage my kids to develop a trade. There's nothing wrong with college if done in the right way.
Yeah.
Like they used to do it in the good old days.
I mindlessly went.
Yeah.
Because I was just told that you'll have more opportunities if you have a degree.
Who told you
that? My dad told me that. And so far I haven't done anything where I needed any more opportunities because of having a degree.
I know. Amazing. I mentioned to you on Monday, I believe, that this past Saturday I went to a birthday party for one of the members of my church and organization, Aussie. And Aussie, she turned 80 years old. She's now 80 years old, and she's in good health, sound mind, lots of energy. She's been a member, cousins and uncles and people around, and everybody just kind of doing their thing, being there, helping, and whatever it would take. We were just living, growing up and being independent. And Ozzy grew up in that way. She had, I think, about 10 siblings, I believe. And somewhere in there, a lot of them, brothers and sisters. And they grew up in 10 years, and it was remarkable in that and I knew some of the things about her, but a lot of the things, or some things I did not know. And she grew up in Louisiana, Arkansas, somewhere down in there, in the country, at a time when we had there were the Jim Crow laws and things like that. She grew up what would be considered as of the organization / church for the last 20-something years, a faithful member, in that she's always supported in whatever we needed. I counseled with her family over the years, and it's just been a really good relationship. At this birthday party, they showed a film of her, her background, her history of being poor nowadays, but growing up in those days, you did not consider yourself as being poor. When I was growing up in Alabama, it never, ever occurred to me, not one time, that I was poor. And the reason for it, because in those days, you have family. You have parents and grandparents and